This is my story. And I never imagined I'd be telling it like this. It started on a quiet Sunday afternoon. You know, one of those lazy weekends where everything feels still and safe. I was curled up on the couch with a blanket, coffee half sipped, flipping through a magazine while Logan showered in the next room. The scent of his body wash drifted out with the steam, the same one I used to love. It used to make me feel comforted, safe. Now, I wasn't sure why it made my stomach twist. His phone buzzed once on the coffee table, then again, and again, 3 times, quick. I glanced at it, not because I was suspicious, just out of instinct. We never had secrets like that. Or at least, I thought we didn't. But lately, something had felt off. A few weekends back, he'd canceled a trip we'd planned for months, said work came up. Then there were the late-night texts where he'd tilt his screen just slightly, away. The new password on his laptop he never explained. The nervous energy he carried like a second skin. Still, I hadn't let myself believe anything was really wrong. I didn't want to be that person. Paranoid, snooping, suspicious without reason. But something about that moment, the buzzing phone, the steam curling under the door, the silence, it just pushed me. I reached for his phone. My hands shook. My heart pounded. I told myself it was nothing, that I'd feel ridiculous once I opened it. The passcode was my birthday. He hadn't even changed it. And there it was. A message preview. From someone saved as Tan. Miss you already, baby. Still taste you on my lips. I froze. My brain tried to find another explanation, some rational excuse. But then more messages came in. More photos. More words I can't even repeat without feeling sick. Tan, short for Taryn. My sister. My baby sister. It was like the world tipped sideways. Everything after that felt automatic. My fingers moved on their own, screenshotting the messages, sending them to myself. I needed proof. Otherwise, tomorrow I'd convince myself I made it up. That it was just a dream. A sick, twisted dream. The water shut off. I had maybe a minute. He stepped out in just a towel, hair dripping, looking like the same man I once thought I'd marry. His eyes dropped to the phone in my hand. Claire. That's all he said, just my name. Like that was supposed to fix it. I stood up slowly. The couch dipped behind me. I looked down at the ring on my finger. 3 carats, princess cut. He'd spent months saving for it. My sister had called it perfect. I slid it off and placed it on the side table. No yelling, no crying. Just a soft clink of metal on wood. And then I walked out the door. Has anyone ever betrayed you like this? Drop a comment. I read every one. As I walked out of Logan's apartment, it all started replaying in my head. Every little moment I had brushed off. Every laugh that lingered too long every time I told myself, she's just being friendly. I remembered the first time Taryn met him. It was at a family dinner. Mom's homemade lasagna. Dad fiddling with the old record player. Grace showing off her school project. Taryn had worn that sky blue dress she knew made her eyes pop. She kept touching his arm when she laughed, leaning just a little too close when he spoke. I noticed it. Of course I noticed it. But I told myself I was overthinking. She was just being warm, playful. That's how she always was. But then there were other moments. Tiny things. Like the time we went to that little Italian place Logan and I loved, and Taryn, accidentally, showed up with friends and joined us. Or how she always managed to be around when Logan was, offering to help clean up, running errands with him while I stayed back with Grace. I thought she was bonding with him. I didn't realize she was replacing me. Even my parents noticed something, in their own quiet way. I remember the first time Logan came over for dinner. Dad was polite, but distant. Mom was cheerful, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. When I asked later what they thought of him, they exchanged that look, the one they used when they didn't want to upset me. "He seems ambitious," Dad had said. That was it. Ambitious. Not warm, not kind, just a red flag dressed in formality. And then there was the joke. God, the joke. We were at my apartment, just the four of us. Taryn was telling some story. Logan was laughing harder than I'd ever seen, and I, trying to keep things light, said, "Better watch out, Logan. Taryn might steal you away from me." Everyone laughed. Even me. But Logan's laugh was nervous, forced. And Taryn? She just smiled. This slow, knowing kind of smile. At the time, I told myself I was being dramatic. That I trusted them both. That kind of thing didn't happen in real life. But it did. And now I was driving back to the one place I swore I'd never run to again. My parents' house. The streetlights blurred as I blinked hard against tears. Every familiar landmark. The park where I learned to ride a bike. The corner store where I used to buy candy with Taran. It all felt like a movie I wasn't part of anymore. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding so hard, I could feel it in my throat. I wasn't just driving home. I was driving toward the truth. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know if I'd be welcomed when I got there. The house was exactly the same soft glow from the porch light. Same scent of lavender and something baking wafting from the kitchen. For a second, I almost forgot why I was there. Almost. I opened the front door quietly. No one noticed me at first. Mom was on the floral couch, flipping through a magazine. Dad in his recliner, halfway through the evening paper. And there, right in the middle of them, like she belonged, was Taryn. She was scrolling her phone, legs tucked underneath her, wearing that red sweater she stole from my closet last month. She looked relaxed, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just set fire to everything I loved. She glanced up and smiled like she was about to say, "Hey, sis." But I didn't give her the chance. I walked straight to the coffee table and grabbed the remote. 3 taps. The TV blinked from the evening news to my phone screen. Mom leaned forward, confused. Dad lowered his paper, and then the screenshot started showing. "Miss you already, baby. Still taste you on my lips. Next time, I want you to..." Mom gasped so loud I thought she might pass out. Her hand flew to her mouth. Dad dropped the paper. His face flushed a dark, angry red. And Taryn? She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She just looked up at the screen, and then at me, and smiled. That same smug, half-smile she used when we were kids and she got away with something. Mom stood up so fast the magazine hit the floor. Her hand cracked across Taryn's cheek before I even saw it coming. "How could you?" she cried. "Your own sister." Taryn touched her cheek slowly, then tilted her head. "Yeah," she said, with that calm, poisonous tone. "I did it." "So what?" Dad surged from his chair. "So what?" His voice thundered across the room. "You betrayed your family! You betrayed her!" Grace let out a small whimper. I hadn't even noticed her until then, crouched behind the couch, hugging her science fair ribbon to her chest. Her big eyes darted between us, trying to make sense of why her family was suddenly at war. Taryn didn't even look at her. "I'm sick of Claire getting everything," she snapped. "The grades, the job, the perfect boyfriend. Maybe I wanted something for myself for once." I stared at her, barely able to breathe. My throat burned with things I wanted to scream, but no words came out. He was never a thing to take. He was my life, my future, and she ripped it out from under me like it meant nothing. No one said anything after that. Not really. Just the sound of Grace sniffling, Mom pacing, Dad whispering something under his breath that sounded like a prayer. Me? I just stood there. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who my family really was anymore. 2 days later, Mom insisted on a family dinner. She said it was important, that we needed to talk, that healing had to start somewhere. I didn't want to go. Every part of me screamed to stay away. But I went anyway. Maybe some small, hopeful part of me still believed they'd choose me, that they'd see what had really been lost. The dining room looked exactly like it always did. Table set with the good plates, napkins folded just right. But the air was thick, heavy with things unsaid. Even the clink of silverware felt sharp. Taryn sat across from me, stabbing her chicken like it had offended her. She hadn't apologized. Not once. Not even after everything. And now she was acting like we were just supposed to move on. Mom was tense, fluttering between us, trying to keep the peace. Dad kept his eyes on his plate. Grace sat beside me, quiet, her little hand occasionally brushing mine under the table like she was reminding me I wasn't completely alone. I pushed peas around my plate, too nauseous to eat. Then Taryn cleared her throat. Loud, deliberate. I have an announcement, she said, voice syrupy sweet. We all looked up. I'm pregnant, she said, with Logan's baby. Silence slammed into the room like a freight train. I dropped my fork. It clattered against the plate, echoing too, loud in the stunned quiet. Mom blinked, then gasped, her face crumpled. You're sure? Taryn nodded, placing her hand on her stomach with theatrical gentleness. 8 weeks. She smiled, like she was proud. We're going to make it work, she added. Logan and I, we've talked. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. My mouth felt dry, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. I looked at my parents. I needed them to say something, to do something. Dad just stared at his water glass like he was searching for answers in the ripples. Mom's voice came first, soft, measured. Claire, I know this is hard. But what? I cut in, my voice hoarse. She's family, Mom said, and it hit like a slap. She's having a baby. She needs support. I felt everything inside me crack. They had already decided, without words, without asking me. They had chosen her. She needs medical care, Mom continued, fumbling. I found the doctor's number on your notepad. I made an appointment for her. I stared at her. You made her an appointment? Mom opened her mouth but didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence said everything. That night, I didn't. Pack in a rage, I packed in silence, calm, cold, 2 suitcases, just the essentials. The rest could rot for all I cared. Photos, a few books, the sweatshirt Grace always stole when she was sleepy. As I zipped the last bag, a soft knock came at the door. Grace. She was crying. She held out a bracelet, one of those thread ones we made at summer camp. Don't forget me, she whispered. I pulled her close and held on like I'd never let go. But I knew I had to, because the people I thought would protect me never really did. I left before sunrise. The house was still asleep, or pretending to be. My bags were by the door, packed tight with everything I could carry. Clothes, old notebooks, the photo of me and Grace at the science fair. Both of us, covered in glitter and smiling like the world would never break us. Grace was the only one who came to say goodbye. She stood in the hallway, her eyes red, her little fingers clenched around something. She didn't speak at first, just walked up to me, opened her hand, and pressed the bracelet into my palm. Bright threads, tied in a knot, a little lopsided. "Don't forget me," she whispered. I couldn't speak. I just pulled her close and held on like if I let go, I'd never breathe again. She pulled away first, wiping her cheeks with the sleeve of her hoodie. And then I was standing in front of Mom and Dad. They weren't crying. They weren't begging me to stay. They weren't even pretending to be surprised. If anything, they looked relieved, like I was the problem they didn't know how to fix. And now, I was fixing myself. "You've already chosen," I told them quietly. "I'm just making it official." Mom looked down. Dad cleared his throat. No one stopped me. The porch creaked under my feet as I stepped outside. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But in the rearview mirror, I saw Grace at the window. Her small hand pressed against the glass, her face barely lit by the early morning. Light. And then I drove. Mile after mile through the blur of trees and silence. I drove until my tears ran dry, until the anger numbed, until the sky turned blue again. I landed in a small studio apartment in San Diego. 600 square feet, peeling paint, a cracked window that let the ocean breeze in whether I wanted it or not. The realtor called it cozy. I called it freedom. The first night, I sat on the floor with a frozen pizza and an old blanket, listening to the waves crashing in the distance. It was quiet, too quiet at first. But then the stillness started to feel safe, honest. I unpacked slowly, bit by bit, hung up the photo of Grace, set the bracelet by the window where the sunlight could catch its colors. I got a new job, a new morning routine, 5 miles along the shore before work. The salt in the air, the rhythm of the waves, it started to clear my head. I didn't feel whole yet, not even close. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for someone to save me. I was learning to breathe on my own. Work became my anchor. In a city where no one knew my story, I could be anyone, just another woman trying to make it through the week. I showed up early, stayed late, poured everything into deadlines and presentations. It wasn't about the job, really. It was about not having space left in my head for anything else, and slowly, it worked. My coworkers started becoming more than just faces at desks. There was Sarah, who always brought me coffee without asking when I looked tired, and Marcus, who swore by his ridiculous motivational quotes, but somehow made them land. Thursday happy hours turned into real conversations. Inside jokes. A little. Piece of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. But no matter how busy I got, Grace always found a way to pull me back to myself. She called every week like clockwork, sometimes to share test scores. She got a 98 on her math exam and wouldn't stop bouncing in her seat, sometimes just to tell me what Mom had burned for dinner again. Her face lit up my screen every time, even through the lag and the grainy camera. She was still her, still my Grace, and she still needed me. 3 months in, I got promoted. Senior marketing strategist. It didn't feel real at first, standing in that glass conference room with applause echoing, and Marcus handing me a bottle of champagne like I'd just won the lottery. But something in me clicked when I looked around at the faces smiling, back at me. I had built something here, from the rubble, with my own 2 hands. That night, we celebrated. Real food, real laughter, music that actually made me dance a little in my chair. For the first time since it all fell apart, laughter didn't feel like betrayal. But then my phone rang. Grace's contact photo popped up. The one from last Christmas, her smile still gap-toothed and full of mischief. I answered, still smiling. And then I heard her voice. Claire. Dad died. The words didn't land right at first. It was like hearing something in a language I used to know but couldn't quite understand anymore. What? I asked, but I already knew. I felt it. His heart just stopped, she whispered. At breakfast, Mom said, he tried calling you, but your number changed. My chest tightened. The air around me felt too thin, too loud, too far away. People were still laughing around the table, raising glasses, music playing. But all I could hear was Grace's shaky breathing and the slow thud of my own pulse. I told her I'd be there in 6 hours. And I was. Somewhere between the airport terminal and the endless stretch of highway, the memories came crashing in. Dad, teaching me how to ride a bike, helping me practice speeches for debate club, squeezing my shoulder at graduation and whispering, "You're going to change the world, Claire Bear." And now he was just gone. No goodbye. No final word. Just silence. I kept driving, the taillights ahead of me blurring into red streaks through the tears. I had run so far to escape the hurt. But grief, it turns out, always knows where to find you. The funeral was quiet. Too quiet for someone like my father, who filled every room he entered, not with noise, but with presence. The kind of man whose silence still said more than most people's shouting. The pews creaked as people shifted, whispered. Words like family drama and such a shame floated through the air like smoke. I sat in the back, hands clasped in my lap, letting the stained glass light spill across my shoes. 3 rows ahead, Taryn leaned into Logan. No, Mike now. The man who used to be my forever, now playing husband to my sister, hand resting protectively on her swollen belly like he'd earned the right. My mother dabbed her eyes with the same embroidered handkerchief she used when I scraped my knees as a kid. Grace sat beside her, tugging at the collar of her black dress, too young for all of this. Our eyes met for a moment. She straightened her shoulders, just like I used to tell her before school presentations. Be brave, Gracie. After the service, we went straight to the lawyer's office. No one said a word, just the sound of the car doors closing, the shuffle of feet down a hallway that smelled like old wood and ink. Mr. Patterson, my father's lawyer for decades, sat behind the desk stacked with folders. His glasses caught the light as he looked at each of us in turn, then began reading. It was all the usual stuff, until it wasn't. To my eldest daughter, Claire Elizabeth Bennett, he said, I leave 45% of my total estate. I blinked. He kept going. To my youngest daughter, Grace Murray Bennett, 25%. To my wife, Margaret Ann Bennett, 20. And then, after a pause, to my middle daughter, Taryn Louise Preston, 10%. The silence cracked. That's impossible, Taryn said, already standing. He would never. But Mr. Patterson was already lifting another envelope from a drawer. My name was written across the front in my father's handwriting. I didn't even realize I was reaching for it until it was in my hands. I opened it with shaking fingers. My dearest Claire Bear, it began. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. The doctors gave me weeks, maybe days. He had known. I saw what was happening. The glances. The lies. I told myself I was imagining it. That no daughter of mine could betray her sister that way. And when I finally saw the truth, it was too late. The ink blurred under my tears. I failed you. I didn't protect you when it mattered. This is the one thing I can still make right. He wrote about Grace, about how she needed someone strong, someone steady, about how he trusted me to be that person. Use this to build a life that's yours, far from the poison they tried to pull you into. And at the very end, I love you, Claire Bear. I'm sorry I didn't say it enough. The letter trembled in my hands. I looked up, and Taryn was staring at me with fire in her eyes. Mike, or Logan, or whoever he wanted to be now, just looked hollow. They hadn't just taken love from me. They'd taken time. Moments I could never get back. Words I never got. To hear in person. A goodbye stolen by lies. I folded the letter carefully, tucked it close to my chest. They thought they had broken me. But my father's words reminded me who I was. And I was done letting them take anything else. It started 2 days after the will reading. At first it was small. A weird text from an unknown number. Hope you sleep well tonight. I deleted it, didn't even blink. Then more came. Dozens. Fake photos started surfacing. Me at bars I'd never been to, doing things I never would. Lines of coke. Men I didn't know. My name tagged. My job listed. 3 co-workers sent me the same gossip blog link within the hour. I could hear it in their voices when they asked if I was okay. They didn't believe it, not really, but they weren't sure either. My phone lit up constantly. Taryn, Mike, random numbers. Voicemails that were just breathing, or threats whispered like promises. And then Grace called, voice shaking. They moved into your old room, she said. They're throwing your stuff in garbage bags. I closed my eyes. Not from shock, but from sheer exhaustion. My room, the one filled with journals, photographs, little pieces of me. And now they were erasing it, one trash bag at a time. But I didn't cry. Not anymore. I got up, went to the desk, pulled out the folder where I'd already started collecting everything. Screenshots, messages, photos, call logs, hotel security, footage from when my tires were slashed. I remembered the hiss of air escaping, the slow sinking of rubber into the pavement. Every detail, every timestamp. I wasn't the same woman who ran that day with shaking hands and a broken heart. This time, I was ready. I filed a report with the police, walked into the station with my head high and evidence in hand. The officer barely blinked when I listed the incidents. He'd seen worse, but probably not from a sister and an ex-fiancé turned husband. 2 days later, the restraining order was filed. Even my mother signed the witness statement. I guess enabling and lying was one thing, but testifying under oath was another. They tried to intimidate me. Of course they did. Mike waited outside the courthouse, hissed something about "what's ours" as I stepped into the light. But I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. "Step back, sir," the officer beside me said. Mike's eyes narrowed. "I'm just talking to my sister." "Former sister-in-law," I corrected, without flinching. "And you're in violation of a restraining order." The handcuffs clicked like music. That night, my hotel room buzzer rang just past midnight. I checked the peephole. Mom, wringing her hands in the hallway. "Claire, please," she said, when I opened the door, blocking her from coming in. "Just talk to me." "Why are you here?" I asked. "To ask me to give them something? Make this stop?" She hesitated. "The baby needs a proper home." My chest burned. "Did you ever ask them to stop hurting me?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Every time she looked away, every time she stayed silent, she'd already chosen. That night, I added one more page to the folder. Just 2 words. I'm done. It didn't take long for the tide to turn. Mike's arrest made the local news the next morning, front page of the town's online bulletin. The headline was almost surreal. "Local man violates restraining order twice in 24 hours." There was even hotel security footage of him lurking outside my room at 3 a.m., hands clenched, pacing. They included a mention of his old college assault charge. The one Taryn had always sworn was a misunderstanding. Then came the fallout. Taryn launched a tearful Facebook campaign, posting ultrasound photos and paragraphs about how I'd abandoned my family in their time of need. It was dramatic, manipulative, and completely expected. But the comments didn't go the way she planned. People started linking police reports, court documents, screenshots of the affair. Everything I had quietly collected was now speaking for me, louder than I ever could. I didn't need to post a word. The truth had weight, and it landed. That same night, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I hadn't saved. It was my mom. Just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long time. And then I added the message to the folder too. Not because I believed it changed anything, but because even a whisper of remorse, however late, still deserved to be documented. Not for them. For me. For closure. By then, Grace was already living with me part-time. She came down with a duffel bag and her math textbooks, her favorite hoodie, and a note that just said, "I like it better when you're the one tucking me in." We made it work. Our own little version of home. She did her homework at the kitchen table, while I worked on the nonprofit paperwork, the one Dad's inheritance helped me launch. Legal support for women in toxic family situations. Real help. Quiet power. No more threats. No more fake smiles. Just fresh air, freedom, and the occasional burnt garlic bread when Grace got a little too ambitious in the kitchen. The silence we lived in now wasn't heavy anymore. It was calm, steady, safe. For the first time in years, the life I was building didn't feel like survival. It felt real. The foundation became more than just work. It became purpose. What started as a late-night idea scribbled in a notebook has now opened its 3rd shelter. We've helped women file restraining orders, escape impossible situations, and reclaim the pieces of themselves they thought were lost forever. Every success story reminds me why I kept going, even when everything inside me wanted to give up. Grace, meanwhile, has bloomed in ways I didn't even know were possible. Her grades are stellar. Her laugh comes easily now. She doesn't flinch when the phone rings. She's joined the science club, started helping me cook dinner, and proudly tells people she has 2 homes. The one she sleeps in, and the one she's building inside. Herself. Sometimes I catch her humming in the mornings. No tension in her shoulders. No quiet sadness hiding in her eyes. Just a kid being a kid again. One evening, while I was sorting through some mail, I found an envelope tucked between the bills. Taryn's handwriting. No return address. Just my name, written in that familiar slant. I held it for a long time. I didn't open it. Not because I was angry, not anymore, but because some things don't deserve another page. Some words once spoken or written don't undo the damage already done. I placed it in the drawer with the others, reminders of a past I survived, not a future I'm responsible for. These days, I don't look back as often, and when I do, it's not with pain, it's with clarity. Some bridges really do burn for a reason, but others, the ones built with honesty and love, like the one Grace and I are building now, those get rebuilt stronger. So if you've ever had to walk away from family to save yourself, I want you to know you're not alone. Like, share, or just leave a heart in comments if this touched your heart. And whatever you're going through, keep going. Your new chapter is still waiting. And if stories like this speak to you, if you've ever felt alone in your pain or found strength in your healing, I'd love for you to subscribe. This space is for people who've been through the fire and came out stronger. So stick around. There's more to come.